and to have your baby, not her baby. And 20 weeks into the pregnancy, you find out some devastating news that your baby has a serious heart defect. And you and your partner decide that you want to terminate the pregnancy, but the surrogate does not. She moves to another state, which has more favorable laws with regard to surrogacy and giving birth and anti-abortion, and that sets up a whole series of legal issues, including, does she have the ability to become the mother just because she decided that she wanted to move to another state and give birth? Does she have to have an abortion because you want her to terminate the pregnancy? Who's responsible for the child and the medical care? This sets up so many issues, and that's what we're talking about today on Love and the Law. And thank you for tuning in. There's a lot of questions that we have and we're going to go through in this show, but one of them is, can you have a contract that requires a pregnant surrogate to have an abortion? If the surrogate refuses, can she be sued for breach of contract, even though no one could physically force her to have the procedure? Does giving birth make the surrogate the legal mother since she has no genetic connection to the child? And I want to make that clear. The child is not the surrogate's child. It's not her egg. It was, I believe, the biological parents and the ones that hired the surrogate. It's their child biologically. And after birth, my parents declined major treatment for the newborn with the heart defect. So I'm PJ Campanero, attorney extraordinaire, and I'm here with Tanya Boyd, paralegal extraordinaire, and we're here to talk about this case. Had you heard about this case prior to me
No.
giving it to you to look into?
No, but when you gave it to me, I went down the rabbit hole, and it's very interesting, and I don't know how I feel about it. I have some feelings for both parties.
I do too. But it really has everything that we deal with in family law cases. You've got jurisdiction issues, you've got biological parent versus legal parent kind of scenario. You've got sort of the abortion issue, although I don't think it's a pro-life or pro-choice scenario here.
Right.
But there's just a ton of issues going on in this case that are really wild. And I've had some cases where surrogacy is involved, and it just, I don't know. I would be very freaked out to have a surrogate.
I have a friend that was a surrogate. I think she was a surrogate 3 times.
Wow, that's a lot of
I know.
surrogacy.
Yeah, and she's a saint. I don't think I could do it. I definitely couldn't do it. It would have to be like a really good, it'd have to be like for my sister or for my best friend. And I would not want to be a surrogate that I would want someone else's egg. I wouldn't want it to be like my baby and then I give it to you.
Yeah, I still feel, I have 2 children, so I've been pregnant twice. And if I don't know, you build a connection with the baby that's going
It's
inside
definitely
of you.
a labor of love if you can be a surrogate.
Yeah, and pregnancy, mine wasn't particularly fun.
Mine wasn't.
It was very hot and uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I was sick some too, morning sickness and stuff. So it's an amazing thing for you to do for someone else. But I just think that connection that you build throughout the pregnancy is hard to break. Although I do think if it was another person's egg,
It would be easier.
it might be easier. But if it was my egg, that's like giving away your kid.
Child.
I would have a hard time.
Yeah, I would have a hard time too. And this is an interesting scenario because, so you have this surrogate and you have what are we calling these? Because they're not the parents.
They are.
They are, but they're not.
I think they're the biological parents. I think this is her egg and his sperm.
Okay. And
that
then,
they did an embryo and then they put it inside the surrogate.
Okay. So this is wild because at this point, who gets to make the decision about this child? Whose child is it? it's their child, but you have someone else carrying this child.
They do have a surrogacy contract. So I think the contract's pretty airtight. I've never done one of these contracts, but it's got a lot of detail in it. And so I'll just give you kind of the breakdown of the story. So McKenna West is the surrogate. She's the one that's carrying the baby. I think she is a nurse, maybe. And the couple, the intended parents, are Omar Ahmad and Nasheen Gilkar. They're listed as intended parents. Some reports are saying they're the biological parents. That's why I think maybe it was their egg and their sperm. And in the contract that they had, the surrogacy contract, it said that they, in the event that there was some kind of medical issue with the child, that they did have the option to tell the surrogate to terminate the pregnancy. And they're in California, where the laws are different than Texas. So in California, you can have an abortion later than in Texas. I think Texas probably has a heartbeat law similar to Georgia, where after a certain point, you're not permitted to have abortion. They hire the surrogate. They have the surrogate contract with McKenna West. And then at 20 weeks, the fetus was diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, or HLHS. And I guess the intended parents asked the surrogate to terminate the pregnancy based on that. So my first question was, because obviously I'm not a doctor, but I was like, how bad is it? Is this like a minor heart defect? Like you have,
like a heart murmur or something.
Yeah, something
treatable.
Something that can be easily, fixed. Is it fatal? That kind of thing. And I did research that a little bit, and it says management commonly involves 3-staged operations, one shortly after birth, another during infancy, and a third in early childhood. See, that's hard for me to think about a little baby having surgery like that. And then also it says typically that if those surgeries are successful, then the child may live to adulthood.
But it says surgery's not a cure.
It's not a cure. Survivors may face additional heart procedures, feeding and developmental issues, exercise limitations, arrhythmias, organ complications, or having to have a heart transplant. To me, that's a serious heart condition. What are the outcomes? It's listed as a severe and life-threatening condition, managed with complex treatment, not a correctable defect. So that's where, obviously, it doesn't sound like it's necessarily fatal for sure, although I did read something that said they may not survive that first surgery that happens right after birth.
But I'm wondering if the surrogate, West, she's a nurse, so maybe she has more insight about this condition, and maybe that's why she didn't want to do it. But it does seem it doesn't seem like it's an easy fix or that it is a sure fix.
It's not.
It seems like a serious condition.
And a lifelong condition.
Yes.
There's going to be additional medical expenses, surgeries, pain, limitations, those kinds of things. So that's where it becomes hard for me. I understand why the parents wanted or felt like they needed to terminate the pregnancy.
I understand on both sides. I mean,
yeah,
I can see why you're carrying a child and you don't want to abort. Some people just don't believe in abortions at any cost.
But my problem with that is, I agree, and that's your right. You believe that. Don't have an abortion. Absolutely. But she signed a contract that said the intended parents could choose to tell her to terminate the pregnancy. So my thing is like, why did you sign that contract?
The only explanation I can think about is that's one of those fine line things that you think are 1 in a million and it's not going to happen, and then it does happen.
Or that's what my thought was like. She's like, oh, I think everything will be fine.
Yeah. And
so I don't think it's going to happen. But
right.
Of course.
But you signed it nonetheless.
That's like on all domestic cases when you're working out a settlement agreement or anything like that. I feel like I tell my clients worst case scenario all the time because as many times, I'm an optimist, but as many times as I've dealt with these family law cases, the thing you think will never happen always happens.
First thing that happens.
Or immediately happens. And then I'm like, of course it did. Of course it did. You know, and I have clients that come in and they're like, oh, he would never do that. He's going to respect this, or she, whatever. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm jaded. Yeah. The worst case scenario likely will happen.
Yeah.
Not always, but it happens. So you got to prepare for that. So that's part of my beef with the surrogate is that she signed this contract. She knew this was a possibility. Surely to God she read it. She may have even had an attorney. I'm hoping that she did that looked over it for her. And she knew that was an option. And then now when it comes down to it, she doesn't want to do it. So what she does is she moves to Texas while pregnant. She says, no, I'm not terminating the pregnancy. She moves to Texas. The laws regarding surrogacy and abortion are different from California. So now we're in a different jurisdiction. And she, I guess, finishes out the pregnancy and does not in Texas and does not terminate the pregnancy. And then she gave birth on August 12th of, 2 weeks ago, or not even 2 weeks ago, in 2026.
Oh, the same day as my pregnancy.
Oh, congratulations. New grandbaby in the house.
Literally just happened a week ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's named the kid. She's calling the child Gabriel. The intended parents call him Rumi. A Texas order requiring life-saving care appointed a guardian ad litem and placed medical decision-making with the intended parents. Subject to the order, the intended parents currently have physical custody while the baby receives specialized treatment. And that last sentence really matters. Refusing an abortion during pregnancy is legally different than obtaining custody at birth. So my first question is, and I think that comes up is, they had that contract provision that said, we have the right to decide to terminate this pregnancy. But how do you enforce that?
And now, the people who wanted to terminate the pregnancy have custody of the baby.
But see, I'm okay with that. I don't see an issue with that. Do you think that's a problem because they wanted to terminate the pregnancy that now they shouldn't have the kid?
Now that they want the kid, now they all of a sudden want the kid because they didn't want the kid when the kid was in the belly.
I feel like
I don't mean to say it. I don't want to say it like that. That's mean. I don't mean they didn't want the kid, but they wanted to terminate the pregnancy. So are we just, now we want the kid and we're going to raise the kid in a normal environment because she had to have the kid?
it's their kid.
It is. It is. They had an agreement.
And I think the first thing is, if you have an order or you have a contract, a lot of times what people request is strict performance. So you've got a contract that says you can terminate the pregnancy. So then do you go into court and say, I want to force this person to have an abortion because it's what the contract says I'm allowed to do. But I don't think no judge, no court would ever do that. So then I'm like,
Texas?
Yeah, I'm like, or in Georgia or in South Carolina. And then I'm like, what is the point of this clause then? Because you can't force it.
Right. And I think that the contract, I think its enforceability is different from state to state. So she played her cards right and changed states.
Yeah, but I still don't think, even in California, which is probably one of the most liberals in the country, I still don't think a judge would be like, okay, I'm going to how would you even do this? Have a deputy take you down to the hospital and have an abortion?
I don't know.
I don't think I just think it's unenforceable. So I don't know why that clause is in the contract, and that probably needs to be looked at. That what I would say is maybe the parents have the option to terminate, but if the surrogate refuses to terminate, then she's responsible for the cost of medical care or something like that, because that's probably the only provision you can enforce. And then, so I guess they went into court in Texas. So that means that the parents who are in California had to then travel or We have Zoom court now sometimes. I had to then file something in Texas to get an emergency order. So then the next question is, what if the parents like, I don't want the kid to have medical treatment. We're just going to let it kind of play out and see how it goes. Can the court force them to?
Looks like maybe the court is not even leaving that up to anybody right now other than the guardian ad litem. Like, he's appointed a medical power of attorney basically over this child to make medical decisions and took it out of both of their hands, the surrogate and the parents. Which may be a smart thing to do. I don't know.
I'll tell you, there was a case, this was years ago. This was when I was a prosecutor in Tennessee. And it was biological parents. But they were in a sort of non-traditional religious group. And they did not believe in doctors or medicine or any of that stuff. And they had a daughter, and she got cancer, and they refused to get her treatment because they didn't believe in it. They thought that you pray and pray it away. But it did not go away, and she ended up dying. But there was a huge dispute. We charged the parents with neglect. And then, of course, the defense attorney who represented them, very good defense attorney out of Knoxville, argued that they had a right to their religion, and that was a religious belief. And I think he won that case. And then the girl ended up dying, though. It was just really sad. It was super sad. And that's what I think about with this, is that they are the parents, technically.
They're bearing the cost of this child now.
And
rearing this child, but now nobody's making the decision. A guardian ad litem that the court has appointed is going to decide this child's medical.
It definitely sounds like in Texas, the kid is going to get treatment. Kid is going to have the 3 surgeries or whatever, at least the first surgery. That's happening. But then you have to decide, because there's biological parent and legal parent. And
because we don't have an adoption yet.
Correct.
So.
There's no adoption, but they are the biological parent. If it's their egg. If their egg and their sperm. They're the biological parents. The surrogate is not the biological parent.
She was just the house for 9 months. She was the Airbnb for the child of the other people.
And so parentage is not the same as pregnancy. So just because she gave birth, because I think a lot of people are probably like, she had the kid, so that makes it her kid, right? Because normally you have the kid. It's your kid.
But in this case, she was just the house for the child. She just grew the child, but it wasn't her child.
But
it's very convoluted.
Yeah, and there's a ton of different jurisdictions involved with this. So it says California has a detailed statutory framework for gestational carrier agreements and pre-birth parentage orders. We do not have that in Georgia. Texas also recognizes validated gestational agreements, but its statutory requirements and jurisdictional rules matter. Alaska, I don't know how the surrogate is from Alaska.
Yes.
From Alaska, but moved to Texas. Alaska has less comprehensive surrogacy legislation, leaving more room for contract and case law arguments. And the California parentage judgment is a major obstacle to West's custody claim. Crossing state lines does not automatically erase a sister state judgment. So basically, because of the full faith and credit clause, if there's an order out of California, Texas has to recognize that. So this is, honestly, it's like a law school problem, or a bar exam.
Yeah, bar exam. This is a great question. There's a lot going on here.
And I think the surrogate definitely did do her research, because she was like, what's the most favorable state I could go to for this scenario? And I guess, and my understanding is she is filing to be the parent.
The parent. So she wants to keep this child. She doesn't want to give this child to...
I guess not, because...
the intended parent. The biological parents. The parents.
Because...
they want her to terminate pregnant.
I'm assuming. But then I'm like, that's not right either.
No.
I mean, why? That's not
No.
And you signed up for this.
I know it kind of seems like she's changed her mind all the way around, and it might not just be the whole I wanted you to terminate the pregnancy. Just like we said, both of us. Listen. You'd have to be like my sister or my very best friend in the whole wide world, and there was no chance you were ever going to have a baby unless I carried it, because I wouldn't be able to be pregnant for 9 months and then hand a baby over to someone else. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Just kidding.
I would have a hard time with that. That's like people that foster dogs. I don't know how we got on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not
Sorry.
fostering dogs. If a dog comes home with me, he's never going to leave. If I'm with you and I like him, it might still come home with me.
But that's what I'm saying. People that foster dogs, they're like, oh, we've had whatever, Scruffy, for 6 months. If I have a dog for 6 months, that's my dog. Like,
Yeah.
You're not getting that dog back. But I know my limitations. I do it a surrogate.
Exactly. And I'm like, what? I think I kind of want to know what the circumstances were. Did she just wake up one day and be like, oh, I don't know, God called on me to be a surrogate? Or she didn't know these people, right?
I haven't seen anything that she did. She must not have. How would she know them? They're in California, in Alaska.
They weren't a family friend or a relative. So what made her...
Your friend that did surrogacy, like, how did she meet her people?
She didn't know the people either. I think she
Was it through a service?
Yes, through an agency. She didn't know the people. I think she just did it out of the goodness of her heart. And then after she did it the first time, it was like so rewarding for her to do this for a family that she did it 2 more times. One of them was like a couple that couldn't have kids. The other was 2 males, a gay couple, 2 men, and I can't remember what the third one was. It might have been someone else who couldn't have their child either. But it didn't bother her to do it. She's a saint, but it didn't bother her to do it. She had 2 kids of her own already, and they weren't like trying to have more kids. And it was just a thing that she did, and she's a saint, and she didn't have a problem. And then also my niece's stepmom, remember she...
Oh, I thought that's what you were talking about.
No. But I forgot about her. She did several surrogacies, and I don't think she knew the people either. I think she did it through an agency too, but I think she might have done 4. You can only do a certain number. They max you out at a certain number of surrogacies, and I'm pretty sure she maxed out, but she did it too with no problem.
Okay, here's my thing. Pregnancy sucks. I guess some people love being pregnant and feel good.
Some people. I'm not some people.
I was getting ready to say, no, it's just, I'm happy to do it.
I'd rather drag my bare behind on the Georgia asphalt in the middle of July. I'm just saying.
That's the other thing. Both of my pregnancies I've made it all through this hell summer that we have in Georgia, and it's a gazillion degrees. And I just remember being like, I'm so hot.
I remember seeing you in the end with Olivia, and you just look like, if this baby doesn't get here soon, I'm contemplating what the rest of my life is going to look like. And it was hot. It's hot. It's hot in Georgia. And
my favorite is I went to court the day before I gave birth, and the judge, it was one of the small courtrooms. I actually remember which case it was. Y'all were on the other side. And I was like, Judge, I cannot stand up. Is that all right? He's like, yeah. Literally, I was one sneeze away from a kid. Yeah, a kid coming right out. So I'm like, no, I just couldn't do it. It was twice was good.
And that's what I'm saying. I feel sorry for the nurse.
I think she might be crazy.
You do?
Yeah. I saw a picture. She had those crazy eyes. I just think it's weird that you sign this contract, you make this deal, you know that obviously going into this is going to be difficult. I would assume you think, hey, this is not going to be easy. I'm going to have to hold this baby, grow this baby, and then give this baby away. But I do think there's a possibility that she was like, yeah, I think I don't want to do that.
Maybe she was in the beginning was doing it for the money, and then she got attached because she was growing the baby in there. I don't know.
Because you get paid, right?
I would assume she got paid.
So we look at the different jurisdictions. So California is generally favorable to properly documented intended parent arrangements. So it sounds like they're favorable to the intended parent's case. Texas can address emergency care for a child born there, but birth location alone does not neatly resolve interstate parentage. So I guess what that means is that Texas had emergency jurisdiction to make sure the kid got medical care. But the case may eventually end up back in California because that's what the contract was.
But interestingly, they gave I guess for purposes here, we're calling them the intended parents, them custody.
Correct. So surrogate does not have custody.
Right.
Georgia listeners should never rely on a generic online contract. I'm not sure what that means, but I've never done a surrogacy contract in Georgia, so
I'm thinking that this is because everybody these days, they just Google something or they tell ChatGPT, make me a contract for something. And this kind of contract, I would go to an attorney in my state and make sure that it covered me, and I would probably consult an attorney in the state where the intended parents live, or the surrogate, which depending on which side I am.
I'm going to assume that the intended parents draft the contract in their jurisdiction, and then the surrogate will sign it wherever. But most contracts have a choice of law or choice of jurisdiction clause, which I would assume, and I believe it does in this case, the law that's going to govern is California. South Carolina, the lack of detailed statute increases the importance of independent counsel and advanced parentage planning. There's a lot of ethical issues involved with this case, jurisdictional issues. It's really made me need our drink of the week, honestly.
Cheers.
Cheers. And this drink is called the Baby Daddy Bellini. I thought that was appropriate. It's not
appropriate.
I guess you don't really have a baby daddy. We do have a baby daddy in this case, the intended father. But because we don't really know who's the parent, I just felt like Baby Daddy Bellini fit the mold. But
it's pretty tasty.
It's actually delicious.
It is.
And we worked hard on this one this week, and
we had to open our own bottle of champagne.
We did,
which we did successfully. No eyeballs were taken out. We did great.
We
still have 2 eyes.
We still have 2 eyes, but I'll tell you what's in it in case you want to make it at home. It's a peach puree or peach nectar. I did the peach puree. 2 ounces. Prosecco, 4 ounces. Raspberry liqueur, a ½ ounce. And a fresh raspberry or a peach as a garnish. We did not have any actual peaches or raspberries, but I did put the raspberry liqueur in it.
You're fired. You have a raspberry bush in your yard.
I know.
You could have just,
But I forgot to pluck.
You could have just come along and plucked us some fresh berries this morning.
Sorry, Mike. I feel like we should have more champagne drinks, though, because this one is really good. I would highly advise it. And if you guys have any more suggestions for our drinks, our signature drink, any name suggestions or actual drink suggestions, but nothing really gross, because I don't drink gross things.
Yeah, and we don't really love sweet stuff either.
I don't.
Although this sounds really sweet, it's not as sweet as it sounds.
It's refreshing, though.
It is. It's a very good summer drink. It's very light, refreshing. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm ready to be a mixologist. I'm not quite there, but I'm close.
Certainly been your guinea pig, and I'm going to say you're not quite there too. You're a little heavy-handed, but today you did great. They're great.
Heavy-handed, I like to call generous.
Yes, you're very generous with the liqueur.
Let's go over some listener Q&As.
Okay, let's get into it. Question number 1, can the intended parents force a surrogate to abort?
I'm going to say, we went over this. I'm going to say no, because as I said, you go to court, you ask for strict performance of this contract, and I don't think any judge is going to take the surrogate and basically force her to have a very invasive medical procedure.
This just reminded me, there was a case in juvenile court, and the young lady that was pregnant was 16, and the parents tried to force her to have an abortion. And and she went to one of her mom's friends, and they took her to juvenile court, and the judge got involved, and the judge said no, even though she's 16 and she's a minor and she lives in your house, this is her body and this is her child, and you can't make her have an abortion. So that's even a different scenario. You got a child having a child, and she has the right to choose.
I just don't think you can make somebody have a medical procedure.
No.
Public policy, nothing supports that. And
No.
I don't think any judge would do that. I think the consequences could be, yes, you are in breach of contract because you agreed that if the intended parents wanted to terminate, that they could, and they could ask that of you, and you were supposed to do that. I think the judge could make you bear the expense of the medical costs.
And that's a consequence of your action, but I don't think they can make you have an abortion.
The only thing I can think of, interestingly, DUIs, when you get pulled over, the officer has the option to request a blood test or a breath test. A breath test, you just blow air. A blood test, some people are really scared of needles, but they make you get the poke and they take your blood from you. Now, they don't make, if you say no, they won't do it, but then you suffer the consequences of that.
Yeah, and I see where your comparison, but that's apples and oranges. They're not making you kill a child.
That's a whole other abortion scenario. But also,
Right.
even if you're pro-choice, my body, my choice. If her choice
Right.
is to have the baby, it is her body while the baby's in there.
Her choice, though, was like to have the baby and then try to keep the baby. She's got a lot of breach of contract going on.
Yeah, she does. She does.
Okay, well, our next question is, can the surrogate keep the baby because she gave birth?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. She signed a contract.
She signed a contract. She said she was going to be a surrogate. They're the intended parents, potentially the biological parents of this child. And no, I don't. It doesn't sound like she has any biological connection, which that's not. Biological parent doesn't necessarily mean legal parent. For instance,
It's still, in my mind, and I'm not saying legally, I'm just saying in my mind, that's another check on their side. If it was their egg and their sperm and it was
Right.
their child. Just another point for them.
but also even if it wasn't theirs, if it was somebody else's but not her, I think that
Yeah, that still is another point for them to me.
Yeah, but like for instance in Georgia, and a lot of people get this wrong. Mostly, that's probably why I came up with baby daddy Bellini. But we're talking about, say, a man and a woman have a child together, but they're not married. So the mom is automatically the legal mother and the biological mother when she gives birth, because she is the biological mother, not in a surrogacy situation. But the father may be the biological parent, but until he goes through the court process and legitimates the child, he is not the legal father of that child, meaning he has no rights, he can have no visitation. The court can even make him pay child support even though he's not the legal father and has no rights to visitation. And people get this wrong all the time.
When I was in family law, that was the number one misconception. Even the women didn't know that it was like that. He signed the birth certificate, it doesn't matter. You could put Mickey Mouse on there. That doesn't make him a legal father. If y'all aren't married, then the child is illegitimate. But that was the number one misconception. Even the women would not know that.
But they wouldn't. And I've had people come in for consultations and they're like, he's telling me that he's going to take the baby away because I don't let him have visitation. I'm like, you probably should let him have visitation if he's the father.
But legally,
he's not the legal father. And so he has no rights. You can do whatever you want to.
Now, he can rectify that simply.
He just has to file a legitimate.
Right.
But if he waits too long and doesn't do the things that he should be doing, he may have what's called lost his opportunity interest, and the court could deny the legitimation. That has happened. I had that happen in a case a year or so ago where he'd just been a real ne'er-do-well, and so I represented the mom, and the judge was like, "Yeah, you're not legitimating."
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, you waited too long, you didn't pay any child support, and you were a total asshole.
Yeah.
And
Hey, I think in this situation, I feel like we've had people legitimate when people were teens, but if it's a person that's consistently been in the child's life, helped with the expenses, paid child support, did all the things, chances are the judge will let you legitimate. But most people that want to be involved with their child, they don't wait until that point. Unless they're very great co-parents and they can get along and they can swap money and they can swap visitation. Most people get involved early, and so it doesn't get to that. But I have seen where people wait years to legitimate, but in the scenarios that I'm speaking of, most of the time the parent was involved and said that legitimation went through.
And in South Carolina, it's a little, you still have to file a paternity action to get visitation and custody, but it's a little bit easier. There's not really a denial of paternity, although I'm actually dealing with a case where they're trying to do that. And what happens is the other parent files a termination of parental rights versus saying they lost their opportunity interest.
And then in Georgia, they make you go to juvenile court to file a petition to terminate parental rights, right?
Correct.
Yes.
But they do not do that in South Carolina.
So it's totally different.
Yeah, you file it in family court.
5 minutes away, and it's totally different laws. So
That's
just like this.
That's where
California
the
and Texas.
jurisdiction issue becomes an issue.
So then we get to our jurisdiction question. Why did moving to Texas matter?
I think it's because they have their abortion policy is less. I don't think she could have even had abortion.
They're not as lenient.
Yeah, I don't think she even could have had an abortion
Right.
based on these facts and circumstances. That when they found out about the heart defect, it was at 20 weeks. So I don't think she could have had an abortion based on their laws. And then also it says parentage often depends on intent. Oh, excuse me, that's a different one. But emergency medical jurisdiction. So I guess in Texas, because there was this medical issue, the court could take emergency jurisdiction. That doesn't mean Texas will be deciding everything.
In the interim, they are.
Yeah, a temporary basis. But it didn't get rid of the fact that there was a contract out of California either.
And the next question is, could the intended parents refuse the surgeries?
It looks like the Texas judge
Appointed the guardian.
right to make sure that, you know.
But in any event, let's just say that he didn't appoint a guardian and he has given custody to the intended parents. The surrogate has no say in it because they have custody. So
Correct.
it would be just like a legal, it would just be like a primary custodian in one of your cases. Even if a mom and dad got a divorce and mom has medical decisions, she has the final say. But these parents are the parents for all intents and purposes.
And I don't know if it sounds like they have custody, sole custody. So with sole custody, you don't really have to discuss.
It didn't sound like the court gave her any rights to the child.
Right.
In the interim,
So
temporarily.
yeah, so I think the parents get to make that decision. That goes to kind of, if you're the parents, I think that the courts could maybe make you, I don't know. I mean,
It's a very interesting matter. For this question, could the intended parents refuse the surgeries? If the court had not appointed a guardian, then yes, they could. But then I would think that maybe her attorney, the surrogate's attorney, might file something and ask the court to intervene anyways and appoint somebody else to be the guardian of the child to make medical decisions.
but I also think it's, to me, and I don't know this, but it seems like the parents, now that the child is here, are interested in preserving the child's life. They may not have wanted to deal with this, but I think now that the baby's here,
They've signed up for it. They're going to see
right,
it through.
they're gonna
Right.
do this. It doesn't sound like they want to just not do anything about the heart defect.
Here's our next question then. Who pays for the lifelong care?
I think the surrogate should have to pay. I do. Okay, at least split it. Because although if she's not a parent, if she's not a legal parent, she's not a biological parent, I don't know that they can make her other than through the breach of contract.
Okay, but here I see what you're saying, but they also, I feel like the parents, the intended parents, could have said, okay, fine, if you don't want to abort the child, then you take the child, we're done. End of story, it's your kid now. So, if they still want the kid, then I feel like they should take the expense of it. Of him. We know it's a boy now, so we can call him deny it. But I think that the intended parent should pay for it. Had they not known about a problem and the child came out, they'd be paying for it. I feel like they could have been like, all right, since you don't want to terminate, then you take the child and the child's yours. And then she should have to pay for it. But I think they're taking the child, they need to pay for it.
Like in a divorce, if you get the car, you gotta make the car payment.
Just like that.
Maybe. I feel like she should have some sort of consequences for breaching the contract.
I agree, but
Because
I don't necessarily think it should be in the form of you pay for this lifelong medical care that's going to be expensive as hell because it's a heart problem.
We also don't know, I'm going to assume if they could pay for a surrogate and go through this process,
Right.
they probably have a decent amount of money.
Or good insurance.
Yeah, or have good jobs with good insurance. So, hopefully that's going to help cover it. But I'm interested to see what the court determines from the breach of contract.
Me too. What kind of damages that she's going to have to pay. And yeah, me too. I'm interested to see if they give it back to California, what they say about this and who ends up with the child.
I think they will. I think
the surrogate parents, not the surrogate, but the intended parents will eventually end up with the child.
I think they'll end up with a child. They have the kid now.
But I'm saying I think they'll end up permanently with the child. Like, finally.
Yeah. And I think the surrogate will just be out of the picture. But one thing in negotiations they might be saying is, okay, we'll pay for the medical bills. Maybe make her pay attorney's fees.
Maybe.
It's been a lot.
Gotta be expensive.
Yeah, because they probably had to get an attorney in Texas, an attorney in California. I don't know if they had to get anyone in Alaska. I mean, that's a lot of money.
And they probably spent a lot of money
on the surrogacy.
Yeah, because the people that I know, they were paid a fee for being a surrogate, and they had to pay for all the care because the insurance does not. If you have health insurance, some of them have clauses that they do not cover your pregnancy if it's a surrogacy. And so most of the time, the intended parents have to cover the cost of medical care, and it ain't cheap to birth a baby these days. And plus, this particular woman, with the problems with the baby, I'm sure she had astronomical. She probably had weekly visits and all kinds of tests and all kinds of stuff that a normal pregnancy wouldn't have. So it was probably triple what it would have cost for normal pregnancy care.
Now I wonder too. I just thought of this. Does their insurance cover her medical?
No, it might, but it just depends on what it says. But I know from experience, my friend, her health insurance did not cover.
So they had to pay everything.
They had to pay everything out of pocket because it specifically. And let's just say, I don't know, I think it was Blue Cross Blue Shield. I could have that wrong, but let's just say Blue Cross Blue Shield. Their clause says we do not pay for surrogacy. So it didn't pay for the care during the pregnancy, did not pay for the birth of the child, and did not pay for the aftercare. So in that situation, they did.
Full out of pocket?
Correct. So it's expensive for the intended parents sometimes.
Well, also just agonizing. Imagine knowing your baby is in Texas. You have no control over what's going on. I just think
I feel like these contracts are here for a reason though, because think about it. Think about 15 years ago when think about all the times people would think they're about to adopt a baby and then the baby's born. They're like, nope, change my mind. That's
they have the right to.
And that's why they have these detailed contracts that they pay these attorneys. And I think what makes this contract interesting is that it crossed state lines, that they went to a different state after they signed in one state, or thinking that's where the mom was, and then she moved to Texas. Okay, that brings us to our next question. Could this reach the U.S. Supreme Court?
Yeah, you can. You could always pursue as many appeals as you wanted, but the Supreme Court takes everything on just a discretionary basis. They would have to have a federal question and not just a disagreement about a state contract. So maybe, but I think it would be a long shot for it to reach the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that the surrogate, and I'm not saying she's poor, but I think at some point that she This has got to be expensive.
But yeah, I feel like some groups or whatever might take this case up as a cause, because I feel like a lot of people will think this is a pro-abortion or pro-choice, pro-life argument. I don't see it as that. I see it as more of a family law, contract law issue.
More of a legal contract.
Yeah.
It just happens to involve a child. Contract is a contract.
Yeah, I see it differently than a pro-life or pro-choice issue, but I think some groups might see it as that and try and champion her cause, because they would say she did not want to have an abortion and that should be supported, that she wanted to give birth to this baby no matter what.
And here we are. She didn't have an abortion, so she won that battle. But the parents are still here saying, okay, we still want this baby.
Yeah.
We wanted to have an abortion. We didn't want to have a child with this heart condition. But here we are. You didn't have an abortion. Now we have the baby. We're still going to take the baby. We're still going to care for the baby. And then the surrogate is still fighting them. Now we're not, it wasn't just that she didn't want to have an abortion. She doesn't want to give them the child now.
Correct. And I think that's concerning to me, because it'd be one thing if she said, okay, I got to have the baby, now I'm going to turn the baby over to the surrogate or the parents, intended parents, and I'll go on my merry way. But like you said, I feel like maybe she changed her mind.
Yeah, completely.
And was like, I'm going to keep this kid. And that's to me, that's devastating. That's like what you were talking about, people that are going through the adoption process, and then at the very end, the bio parent decides, yeah, I'm gonna keep the baby.
I saw that a lot with young women.
Yeah.
These teenagers, not exactly teenagers, but younger girls, 18, 19, 20, whatever, they would say they were going to give their baby up for adoption, and then they'd get to the end, they'd have the baby, they'd hold the baby, and then it's just too late, they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And so I feel, but I mean, that was years ago. That was before people came up with contracts and stuff. I feel like they're much more secure now, and if you're going to go through this process, that's agonizing to wait 9 months and be scared that they're not going to give you the baby. I feel like people cover their bases more with these contracts.
But they still have a certain amount of time. I can't remember the exact days, but they do have time after you sign the paperwork, your surrenders, because you have to sign
like 10 days or something.
Yeah. And going to the hospital, I've done that before. Going to the hospital and getting a biological mom to sign off on the surrenders for her kid. I'm like, this is not something I enjoy.
Now in Georgia, this is not new. Of course, this was like, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I don't know. But now, you used to could just send it to the parent and they just sign off on it in front of a notary. Now, you actually have to have an attorney present to explain the surrender of rights and have the parent surrender their rights. It can't just be signed and notarized. It has to be presented by an attorney.
Well, and that's what I've had to do. And that's how it is in South Carolina. I've done it more in South Carolina, where I've gone to a jail, I've gone to the hospital, and had the parent sign that. The hospital was the most difficult. She just had the baby. And I'm getting this mother to sign away. And the adoptive parents are like in the hallway, basically freaking out, like, please God, let her sign.
And then they have to hold their breath for 10 more days or however. I think in Georgia, I think it's 10 days. I could be wrong. I haven't done an adoption in a while. I did them a lot, but I just haven't done one in a while. And I have the menopause brain. But let's just say 10 days. And you have to hold your breath for 10 more days and make sure that they rescind it.
Yeah. And it's just, it was hard to ask somebody if they wanted to do that.
I don't envy you for having to do that.
It was not easy.
We're going to have to keep following this case because now I'm interested. But I do think that they're going to end up with it.
Yeah,
I do think she's going to get some sort of slap on the wrist for the breach of contract. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be too monetary, because I think anybody, just any human, is going to feel compelled to be like, oh, she birthed this child. And I just don't think they're going to.
But think about it. She got paid, right?
She's probably spent that money on attorneys. I can only imagine. Unless, like you said, some pro-life agency is funding this for her. But still, I just don't think she's, I don't know, I could be wrong. They could give her $100,000 because you did this to these people and you breached the contract, but I just don't think it's going to be that serious. But I do think she's not going to get a child.
Yeah.
And I think that's her end goal. I think she completely changed her mind.
I do. Because why wouldn't she, once she made sure that the baby was born, why not just turn the baby over?
Because the baby's here now. It doesn't seem like they want the baby. They're not saying we don't want the baby. The baby's here now. We want to go ahead and take the baby. So unless she didn't change her mind, she would have just given the baby. So she's going to change her mind.
Not cool, surrogate. Not cool.
But also, like I said, I can see it happening. That would be a hard thing to do. To carry a baby for 9 months, eat the right foods, have the morning sickness, feel the baby kicking in your belly, push the baby out, or she may have had a C-section. I don't know, but birth is traumatizing in itself. She's bonded with this baby for 9 months inside of her and grew this little human in her. I can see where people change their mind. I would never do it. I already know my limits. I couldn't foster a dog.
I'd never be a surrogate.
Me either.
It wouldn't work out for me.
Siren.
We
They're
got
coming
sirens.
they're
The
coming
sirens
for
are coming for us. Family law fail of the week. I think this is a whole family law fail of the week, honestly. A contract that tells somebody they have to get an abortion, that's a problem. I'm like, why is that, once again, why is that in there? Because I don't
because
think
things like this happen.
Yeah,
Yes,
but I don't think it's enforceable.
I don't either. But like I said, I think it's one of those things that they throw in there to maybe make one side or the other feel better because you don't think it's ever going to happen, and then it happens.
And I just think it's just unenforceable. So I don't know why it's in there. I don't do surrogacy contracts. I don't work for an adoption agency or anything like that where they do this all the time. Although I've done adoptions, but I'm like, ugh, this just sets everybody up. But these are all scenarios that, once again, worst case scenarios. You would have never thought this was going to happen.
And then they had the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and then you have the worst case scenario that could ever exist. But that's my family law fail of the week. I don't have any Taylor Frankie calls this week.
I know, it's been quiet on the creek.
It had. I think she saw our last episode where we talked about how stupid she was being on.
And she was like, you know what? I'm going to be quiet.
Okay, I do. It's not a family law fail, but it goes back to Mormon wives. It is a family law fail because she is in the middle of a divorce right now. So Jessie, who's also on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, so she had a labiaplasty, which I guess is where you get your vagina rejuvenated.
Yeah, it's like a boob lift for your vagina. Yeah.
I mean, does anybody look at that? I'm not down there that much.
No.
I'm not looking at it. I'm not. I guess other people might be. I don't know. I just feel like it's a part that sees little light. So she had the labiaplasty, and she went. I can't remember what she was on. I think it was social media or something, and she said that hers looked just like her daughter's, and she had just as fresh as a daisy, and just looks just like my young daughter's, perfect, like it's never been touched. I think that's extremely inappropriate and weird.
That is so weird. That is the weirdest comparison I've ever heard.
And I'm like,
those are the kind of kids that I don't, never mind. I was going to say, those are the kind of parents that I would never let my kids spend the night there. And I liked her up until you just told me this comment.
See, I think
it's creepy.
I feel like she's weird, like she's missing something.
That's
like
a weird
emotion,
comment.
A filter.
That's
something.
a weird comment, and that is something I would be playing in divorce court if I were her husband.
Well, her husband, he seems like a total tool, but if one of our clients, like in a divorce case, like the other side said
that's getting played on the big screen.
And I feel like most judges would be like, that's a concern.
That is very bizarre.
So I feel like even though we don't really know much about their divorce, but she is in a divorce right now.
That's a weird comment.
Don't say things like that. Don't think things like that. Go to a therapist. You don't need to be comparing your vagina to your young daughter's vagina.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's my So that's my family
That opens
law.
the door for the weirdos in America to fantasize about your daughter.
My mind would never go there.
Never. It's on the whole other side of the spectrum. I would never say something like that or think something like that.
Me either. Closing verdict. I think you have two things going on here. You've got the whole morality thing of, do you protect children? Did the surrogate have a right to protect this child and make sure that the child was born even though the child had a pretty and severely serious heart defect and we don't know that this child's gonna make it.
Hopefully the child is fine. Maybe the 3 surgeries will be the...
Yeah, we hope so, but it said people with this heart defect may make it to adulthood. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a glowing.
Yeah, and that the surgery is not a cure.
It's not a great
So even if it does make the child better, doesn't cure it.
And I think the life expectancy is shorter. And I think that's a hard thing too, because as a parent, there are different viewpoints on this. If you know that you're going to have a baby with a terminal illness, and maybe it's selfish to say this, but I don't know if I could deal with that. If I knew I was going to give birth to a child, get to know the child, and the child's going to die. That's really hard.
And the other flip side of that is, do you want to bring your child into this world and give them a short time here and then they die? I feel like that's
a short time here.
Not fair to the child.
Painful surgery.
That's my thing. It's not about taking care of the child or doing hard things. It's about the quality of life that the child's going to have.
This is a hard case, hard decisions to make. Nothing about it is easy.
There's no black and white. It's very gray.
Very gray, which I think everything's gray. But.
Yeah, all domestic is gray for sure. Criminal's gray too. I guess it's all gray.
It's all gray. And the older I get, the more gray it gets. I used to be a black and white person, and I'm like, that's just not life.
Yeah, it's all gray. It's not because of cataract. It's not our old people cataracts yet.
It might be. Just a little bit.
Just a little.
So next time, I think we're going to talk about the Lindsay Clancy case.
Yes.
Even though it's not family law, but it touches on a lot of the issues involved with family law, I think, and frankly, it's just really
I feel like mental health is at the top of the list of family law, and so we can touch on the mental health if that drags it into the family law, because this is a wild case. Wild. You know what? I can't. This is like the Murdoch case for me. I'm sucked in, and what I completely thought that I felt in the beginning is not what I feel now. And I haven't watched it day for day now. I waited until a few days into it, and then I started watching it, because I don't like the anxiety of waiting until the next day. I like to be able to binge it. I like to binge a couple of days at one time, and then I like to be able to go back and replay it. So I waited till it got about 7 days in, and then I started watching it.
Oh, we were going to do that episode this week, but I need to
No, I need more time.
Yeah, I
need to get over.
Right, I've looked at bits and pieces, but I haven't watched full days. Although yesterday I did see the thing where the prosecutor asked the mother-in-law or something, or stepmother-in-law, if murder is a mortal sin. I was like, that's really weird.
But I just did you see the life-size exhibit?
No. So, next time we will talk about Lindsay Clancy and all aspects of that. Mental health, family law, murder, I guess, and definitely mental health issues. But that's it for this episode. We don't have anything left because these were so good.
Because they were good. So.
Yeah, cheers. We'll see you next week and a half-ish.
Bye.
Bye.